For the past few years, pretty much everything the Pokemon Company did resulted in their fanbase unleashing fury like the world's never seen before, which some may think is an entitled thing to do just because fans didn't get exactly what they wanted. But if you ask me, I think this is something that could have easily been avoided if only the Pokemon Company had an idea of what their own fanbase actually wanted. What's that, you ask? Well, pour yourself a can of bull gas, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's goofiest looking Supreme model, CameronAllOneWord, to tell you what the Pokemon fanbase wants, what they really want. Alright, so there's actually different portions of the Pokemon fanbase that are all angry at different things for very different reasons to where you can't really put all these disgruntled fans into the same category. I mean, some fans were pretty pissed at Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee for being classified as core games, despite how different they were from the rest of the series. Others are mad at Sword and Shield for graphics that weren't much better than what you'd see on a 64 game with an expansion pack. Some were mad at the Sword and Shield DLC for providing a post-game that the rest of the series just kinda had within the base game, and while most of us were happy with the announcement of the poorly named but still promising new Pokemon Snap, others found it depressing to see a Pokemon game that wasn't made by Game Freak look so good. But regardless of how you feel about any or all those issues, or if you're currently happier with the franchise than you've ever been before, I think that pretty much all of us Pokemon fans could agree that Pokemon Unite sucks a big fat snake egg. I mean, not only is it a phoned-in League of Legends knockoff with Pokemon tossed into the mix, made by a company who may or may not be selling our data to the Chinese government, but it was also hyped up for a full week in advance after people were already happy with Pokemon Snap, which implied that the next announcement would be something even bigger. And look, if you're a diehard Pokemon fan who's gonna defend anything and everything the company does, then just keep in mind that I don't really have a problem with the Pokemon Company whoring their IP off for a mindless spin-off that only caters to casuals in the hopes of making some easy money. I mean, I may not personally like it, but if any gaming company is even just a chance to make assloads of money from the casual market, then I can't say that I blame them for taking it, even if it means making a game that the hardcore fans won't like, especially if the game might potentially bring new players to the core series. But if you're gonna make a simplified cell phone game for the casual market, then you either need to make it clear that what you're gonna announce is in fact a mobile game, even if it is being copy and pasted over to the Switch, or don't even bother hyping it up at all, because casual gamers who don't play core Pokemon games aren't the least bit interested in watching game trailers on YouTube, let alone detailed presentations on games. The only way you're gonna get people from the casual demographic is if they happen to notice it's free to play in the Apple Store or whatever and download it on a whim. And yeah, I know Pokemon Go was hyped up ahead of time, but it was always clear from the start what that game was gonna be, which is why nobody was disappointed that it wasn't a new core game. And besides, at that point in time, the Pokemon Company hadn't really steamed anybody's clams just yet, so they still had enough goodwill with the fans to try new things with the IP. However, even though the majority of the fan base is pretty happy right now, more and more people are starting to have just about enough of Pokemon shenanigans as of late. I mean, at the time of this recording, the Pokemon Presents video that revealed Unite's got well over 150 zillion dislikes, and if you're excited for this game, then you know what, more power to you. I'm not gonna try to ruin your party, because as a Pokemon fan, all I can do is not buy the game if I don't like it. And if the game still performs well despite my boycott, then you know what, that just means that more people disagree with me, which is why I've never shamed anybody for playing Sword and Shield, despite the fact that I personally skipped it, seeing as how it didn't impress me in any of the promotional material leading up to the game's release, nor have I been impressed with anything I've seen of it since. But hey, in the end, it still sold out the ass, so I guess enough Pokemon fans didn't feel the same way I did, where Game Freak's gonna have to lose millions of dollars and spend more time on the core games in the future, because the fan base seems to find it irresistible the way it is. So it seemed to me that the Pokemon Company could just do whatever it wants, or at least that's what I thought before Pokemon Unite duked the bed anyway, but now that it has, it just might be the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of fans who've been trying to cut the company a little slack. And if you ask me, I think the majority of the core fan base just might be ready to start raising some hell to get the company to finally give them what they want, which would simply be for Pokemon to start trying again. I mean, sure, Pokemon Snap looks good, but Pokemon games are usually great when they're made by reputable developers, and I mean, let's be honest, how hard would it really be to make a good Pokemon Snap game? And even though I've never played Sword and Shield myself, I'm sure they're still pretty good games in their own right, but even so, they still could have easily been so much better if Game Freak didn't use so much of their resources to focus on Little Town Hero instead. A lot of people think the reason why Game Freak's focusing on that game so much is because they're afraid that with Pokemon Go making the company so much more money than the core series for far less time and effort, that they're gonna start becoming more and more disposable to the Pokemon Company, but I just don't agree with that whatsoever, because as big as Pokemon Go is, even to this day, it's still a completely different thing than what the core series is all about. Sure, some core fans play Pokemon Go, and even though I never consciously leave my house to play it anymore, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't open the app up every now and then to see what's going on. But still though, regardless of how popular that game may be or become, I'd be flabbergasted if anybody told me that they quit playing the core series for it, so I don't see why Game Freak could feel threatened, or why Pokemon Company would stop caring about the mainline games as much. I mean, if you had a company that made $1 billion a year selling cough syrup, and then some other company came along and started selling laxatives using your name and logo for some reason, which led to you making an extra $10 billion a year, here. Why on earth would you ever even consider taking any of the resources from the cough syrup business away when the laxatives division just kind of runs itself? I mean, yeah, the laxatives make you 10 times as much money in this scenario, but even though both products are medicines, they're both completely different things altogether. Yeah, some people buy both, but for the most part, they're being sold to two completely different types of people, so even though I'm looking forward to Little Town Hero, I think it's silly of Game Freak to think that they're even remotely close to being disposable. But regardless of whether or not Game Freak even feels that way, I think the Pokemon Company's absolutely insane if they think they can neglect any games that aren't on cell phones, because like I said earlier, nobody's quitting the core series for mobile games, but fans will eventually walk away altogether if they feel like they're being jerked around with stuff like Pokemon Unite. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Pokemon's anywhere close to being in any kind of danger whatsoever though, because the franchise has so much money that they could honestly probably get away with stunts like Pokemon Unite for decades before it disappeared altogether. I mean, Sega's been jerking the Sonic fan base back and forth for years, and look at how popular that series is even to this day. But even though Sonic the Hedgehog's still a successful franchise, it's nowhere near as prominent as it once was, and I'm worried that if Pokemon doesn't clean its act up, that's where it's gonna end up in the future. And to clean their act up, all they've really gotta do is start focusing more on quality over quantity. Yes, quantity does mean more money in the short term, and I get that that's the whole point of business, but lower quality and oversaturation also slowly but surely drives fans off over time. So even though Pokemon Unite's still probably gonna make Pokemon Company a little bit of money, I still think that they need to take the fan reaction seriously and start trying a little bit harder from now on. And if they really don't want to delay the core games and sacrifice hundreds of millions of dollars, then they should just simply hire more developers to help out, because even though it'll cost more money in the short term to do that, it'll actually make them more money in the long run by not driving any fans off. And if you think Sword and Shield sales are good enough, then just imagine how much better they would have been without a divide. And that fan divide could have easily been avoided if they had just worked a little bit harder on those games. But anyway, what do you think the Pokemon fan base wants? Do you think they're entitled for being angry at so many things lately, or do you think that the games could use a little more fine-tuning, regardless of whether or not you've even been playing them? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody. But let me tell you, if there's two people who the Pokemon Company should never neglect, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Mr. Cool Kid and El Gringo. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and silly rewards in the mail. Send pictures or videos of you rocking merch if you want to make cameos in my videos, and follow me on Twitch if you ever want to hang out whenever I play video games sometimes. My name's CameronAllOneWord, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.